Before every great war, there is always a sign. Not a warning shouted through loudspeakers, not a message written in the sky for all to see, but something quiet, something strange, something only a few people notice. And in Iran, just weeks before the world was thrown into chaos, one man saw it. I need to tell you something. I have been holding this story inside me for a long time. Many years. And every time I try to speak it, my mouth goes dry and my hands start to shake a little. Not because I am afraid anymore. I am past that now. But because what happened to me was so big, so real, so far outside anything I ever expected in my life, that even today, when I close my eyes, I can still see it. I can still feel it. And some things, when they happen to you, they do not leave. They just stay. They become part of you. Like a scar that does not hurt anymore but reminds you every single day that something happened there. My name is Reza. I am 55 years old now. I live a quiet life. A simple life. I wake up in the morning, I drink my tea, I sit by the window and I look at the sky. And every morning, without fail, I think about Tehran. I think about the rooftop. I think about the night the sky was not normal. But let me start from the beginning. Because if I jump to the middle, you will not understand. You will not feel it. And I want you to feel it. I want you to understand what kind of man I was before all of this happened. Because the story is not just about what I saw. The story is about who I was when I saw it. I grew up in Tehran, a city that is busy and loud and full of life. There are bazaars that go on forever, streets that are always moving, smells of food coming from every direction. I loved that city. I still do even now. Even after everything. Tehran was my home. It was the only world I knew. My father was a serious man. He was not cruel, but he was strict. He believed in discipline. He believed that a man who does not pray is a man who is lost. And from the time I was very young, maybe 5 or 6 years old, he taught me to pray. Every morning before the sun came up. Every midday. Every afternoon. Every evening. Every night. 5 times a day without missing. He said to me, he said, Reza, a man who keeps his prayers is a man who keeps his soul. And I believed him. I believed him completely. So I grew up that way. I grew up as a devoted man. Prayer was not something I thought about. It was just what I did. Like breathing. Like eating. It was part of my body. Part of my day. Part of who I was. I did not question it. I did not wonder about it. I just did it. And there was a kind of peace in that. A kind of safety. When you know exactly what to believe and exactly what to do, life feels more simple. More clear. I got married when I was 28. My wife's name was Maryam. She was a gentle woman. Patient. She made the house feel warm. We had 2 children together. A son and a daughter. I worked hard. I provided for my family. I kept my prayers. I fasted during the holy month. I gave to those who had less than me. By every measure of my community, I was a good man. A faithful man. And I was proud of that. Not in an arrogant way. Just in a quiet, steady way. The way a man feels when he knows he is doing what is right. But here is the thing I never told anyone. Not my wife. Not my father. Not any person in my life. Deep inside me, very deep, buried under all the prayers and all the discipline and all the years of doing everything right, there was a question. A small question. Like a tiny stone stuck in your shoe. You can walk on it. You can even ignore it most of the time. But it is always there. And sometimes, when everything is quiet, you feel it. The question was this: what if there is something I am missing? I never said it out loud. I never even let myself think it for very long. Because in my world, that kind of question was dangerous. Not just socially dangerous, not just the kind of thing that makes people look at you strange. In Iran, that kind of question could cost you everything. Your family. Your reputation. Your safety. So I buried it. Every time it came up, I pushed it back down. I told myself, no, do not go there. You have everything. You have your faith, your family, your prayers. Do not go there. And I was good at pushing it down. I had years of practice. I was 47 years old when the night happened. The first night. The night on the rooftop. It was winter. I remember that clearly because the cold in Tehran that year was unusual. It was the kind of cold that gets into your bones. The kind that makes you want to stay inside and drink hot tea and not move. But I had been inside all day and I needed air. I needed to breathe. So after my evening prayers, I went up to the rooftop of our building. I used to do that sometimes. Just stand up there and look at the city. Tehran at night has a kind of beauty that is hard to explain. All those lights, spreading out in every direction, going all the way to the mountains in the distance. It always made me feel something. Something quiet and big at the same time. I stood there that night with my hands in my pockets, just looking. The air was cold on my face. The city was doing what it always does, moving and humming and glowing below me. And then I noticed something. The sky was not right. I do not know how else to say it. I have tried many times to explain this and I always feel like my words are not enough. But the sky was not normal that night. There was a light on the horizon. Not like lightning. Lightning comes and goes in 1 second. This was steady. This was constant. It just sat there on the edge of the sky, glowing. Not too bright. Not blinding. But enough. Enough that it made me stop everything I was thinking and just stare. I told myself, maybe it is some kind of light from a building. Maybe it is a fire somewhere far away. I kept looking for a normal explanation. Because that is what your mind does. It tries to make everything normal. It tries to protect you from what it cannot understand. And then the light changed shape. It moved slowly. Or maybe it did not move at all. Maybe it just became clearer. I'm not sure. But within a few seconds, that light had a shape. And the shape was something I recognized. Something I had seen before in my life, even though in my world it was not something we talked about much. It was a cross. A simple cross. Just sitting there in the light on the horizon, clear and steady, like it had always been there and I had just never looked up before. My heart started doing something strange in my chest. I put my hand on it without thinking. My mouth went dry. My legs felt like they were made of something heavy. No, I said. I said it out loud to the empty rooftop. No, this is not real. I closed my eyes. I stood there with my eyes shut for maybe 15 seconds, maybe 20. I told myself when I open my eyes, the sky will be normal. Just the city lights and the dark sky and the cold air. Normal, normal, normal. I opened my eyes. The shape was gone. But the feeling was not gone. The feeling stayed with me all the way back down the stairs, through the door, into the bed next to my sleeping wife. It stayed with me all night. I lay there in the dark with my eyes open and my heart still doing that strange thing, and every time I closed my eyes I saw it again. The light. The shape. The cross on the horizon. I did not sleep that night. Not 1 hour. In the days that followed, the news was getting worse. There was tension everywhere. I do not need to explain the politics of it because the politics are not the point of my story. The point is that people were afraid. The region was moving towards something bad. You could feel it in the way people talked, in the way they moved through the streets, in the way my neighbors were buying extra food and keeping their children close. Something was coming. Everyone felt it even if nobody said it clearly. And in the middle of all that fear, I was walking around with this other thing inside me. This image I could not shake. This cross in the sky that I kept telling myself was not real, was not what I thought, was just light playing tricks on a tired man's eyes on a cold night. I threw myself into my prayers even more than usual. I told myself, pray more, pray harder, and whatever this feeling is, it will go away. I prayed so much those days that my forehead hurt. But the question that I had buried for so many years, that small stone in my shoe, it was no longer small. It was growing. It was getting harder to push down. Every time I bowed my head to pray, it was there waiting for me. What if you are missing something? Then the second night happened. It was about 2 weeks after the first time. I was again on the rooftop. I had gone up there because I could not sit still inside. The news that day had been very bad. There was talk of missiles. There was talk of conflict spreading. Maryam had been crying quietly in the kitchen when she thought I was not watching. My son had called me asking if we were safe. And I had said yes, of course we are safe, in the voice that fathers use when they are not sure but they cannot say that. I stood on that rooftop and I felt very small. Very tired. Like a man who has been carrying something heavy for a long time and his arms are starting to give out. And then the light came back. This time it was not on the horizon. This time it filled more of the sky. It was bigger. It was brighter. Not blinding, still. But stronger. And I was not confused this time. I was not looking for a normal explanation this time. I just looked at it. I just stood there and looked. And then I heard something. Not with my ears. I want to be very careful how I say this because I know how it sounds. I know that when people say they heard a voice, other people start to back away slowly. But this was not something I imagined. This was not something I made up. I have spent years asking myself, did you make this up? And the answer is always no. Because you cannot make up something that does that to your whole body. You cannot invent something that makes every single part of you go completely still. The voice came from inside me. Or maybe it came through me. I do not know how to explain the location of it. But the words were clear. 3 words. I am the way. That was all. And I fell to my knees on that cold rooftop. I did not choose to fall. My legs just went. And I was shaking. Not from cold. From something else entirely. From something that starts in the very center of you and moves out to every edge. No, I said again. I said it like a child. Like someone who is scared. No. This cannot be. Because I knew what those words meant. I knew where those words came from. You do not grow up in Tehran without knowing something about Christianity, even if you are Muslim, even if it is something you are not supposed to pay much attention to. I knew those words were from a holy book that was not mine. And that scared me more than anything else had scared me in my life. More than the news. More than the missiles. More than the conflict spreading across the region. Because this meant that the question I had buried for 20 years was no longer buried. It was standing on top of me with both feet. I went inside and I shook for an hour. The next day, I did the most dangerous thing I have ever done in my life. And I want you to understand that I am not being dramatic when I say dangerous. In my country, in my community, in my family, what I did the next day could have cost me everything. Everything. My marriage. My children's respect. My father's love. My safety. My freedom. Possibly my life. I looked for a Bible. I did not go into a shop and ask for one. That is not how it works. I asked very carefully through a person I trusted, a man who I knew had some connection to people outside our usual circle. It took 3 days. 3 days of waiting and feeling like everyone could see what I was thinking just by looking at my face. 3 days of praying 5 times a day with this question burning inside me. On the 3rd day, the man brought me something wrapped in a cloth. The kind of book that has been handled by many hands over many years. He put it in my hands without a word and I took it home and hid it. I did not open it that day. I sat with it hidden in my bag and I just thought about what I was doing. About what I was risking. About who I was and who I had always been. That night, when Miriam was asleep and the house was quiet, I took the book out. My hands were shaking again. The same shaking from the rooftop. I held the book for a long moment and then I opened it. Just opened it to whatever page it fell on. I was not looking for anything specific. I was just looking.